Introduction to Dorothy's life. Dorothy Stratten was a rising star whose journey from a humble Canadian background to the glamorous yet dangerous world of Hollywood was both captivating and heartbreaking. Her beauty, talent, and charm made her a beloved figure, yet her tragic death in 1980 exposed the dark side of fame, control, and obsession. This deep-dive story unpacks every aspect of Dorothy Stratten's life, career, and murder, leaving no detail unexplored. Dorothy's early life and childhood in Vancouver, Canada. 1. Dorothy's family background. Parents' struggles. Dorothy Ruth Hoog Stratten was born on February 28, 1960, in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, to Dutch immigrant parents. Her father, Simon Hoog Stratten, left the family when Dorothy was just a toddler, leaving her mother, Nellie Hoog Stratten, to raise her and her younger siblings, John and Louise. The Hoog Stratten family struggled financially, with Nellie working hard to provide for her children in a modest household. Sibling dynamics. Dorothy was particularly close to her younger siblings. She took on a protective and nurturing role, helping to raise them while her mother worked multiple jobs. These early responsibilities helped shape Dorothy into a kind, responsible, and mature young woman, a characteristic that would follow her throughout her life. 2. Dorothy's education and early interests. School life. Dorothy attended local public schools in Vancouver and was known as a quiet, hardworking student. Although she was not a social butterfly, she was well-liked by her peers and teachers for her shy yet warm personality. While she didn't necessarily excel academically, she was a steady, responsible student who was more focused on helping her family. Extracurricular activities. Outside of school, Dorothy had few interests that went beyond her responsibilities at home. She wasn't involved in sports or arts but rather preferred quiet, solitary activities. These early years were marked by a lack of ambition for fame or fortune. She didn't dream of Hollywood, modeling, or acting. Her life was more focused on the day-to-day reality of growing up in a modest household. Work at Dairy Queen. At age 16, Dorothy began working at a Dairy Queen in Vancouver to help support her family. This job was crucial to the family's financial situation and gave Dorothy her first experience with the outside world. It was here, at Dairy Queen, where her beauty caught the attention of Paul Snider, a man who would ultimately change her life for both better and worse. The introduction of Paul Snider, the beginning of a dark relationship. 1. Who was Paul Snider? Paul Snider's background. Paul Snider was born in 1951 in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Raised in a working-class family, Snider had always harbored dreams of making it big. Throughout his teenage years and early adulthood, Snider had been involved in various schemes, often operating on the fringes of legitimate business. He worked as a nightclub promoter, a talent scout for adult films, and a hustler in the seedy world of Vancouver nightlife. Snider's personality. Snider was known for his flashy lifestyle, despite not having the financial means to support it. He drove expensive cars, wore gold jewelry, and surrounded himself with beautiful women. His charm was largely superficial, as those who knew him better realized he was manipulative, controlling, and obsessed with achieving fame and fortune, at any cost. 2. The first meeting between Dorothy and Paul. Paul's instant attraction to Dorothy. Snider met Dorothy at the Dairy Queen where she worked, and he was immediately captivated by her beauty and innocence. At the time, Dorothy was only 17 and Snider was in his late 20s. He saw her as a potential star who could bring him the success he had always craved. To Dorothy, Paul seemed sophisticated, successful, and experienced in the glamorous world she knew nothing about. Paul's influence on Dorothy. It didn't take long for Paul to convince Dorothy that she could be more than just a Dairy Queen employee. He saw in her the potential to be a model or even a movie star, and Dorothy, having grown up without many opportunities, was easily swayed by his promises. While her mother, Nellie, was skeptical of Snider, Dorothy was flattered by the attention and slowly fell under his influence. 3. Paul's control begins. Building her confidence. In the beginning, Snider worked to build Dorothy's confidence. He encouraged her to pose for professional photos and introduced her to the idea of modeling for Playboy magazine. Dorothy, who had never considered such a career, was initially hesitant, but Snider's persistence paid off. He convinced her that modeling was the key to a better life for her and her family. Manipulation and control. As their relationship deepened, Snider's darker side began to emerge. He became increasingly possessive of Dorothy, isolating her from friends and family and controlling her every move. He kept close tabs on her, dictating what she wore, where she went, and who she interacted with. While Dorothy remained unaware of just how controlling Snider was becoming, those around her began to notice. Dorothy's entry into the world of Playboy. 1. Snider's plans for Dorothy's success. Introducing Dorothy to Playboy. Determined to make Dorothy a star, Snider arranged for professional photographs to be taken of her. He sent these photos to Playboy magazine, hoping to catch the attention of Hugh Hefner, the magazine's founder. At the time, Playboy was the pinnacle of beauty and glamour for many aspiring models, and Snider was convinced that Dorothy's natural beauty and innocence would make her a perfect fit. Playboy's response. The Playboy team immediately took notice of Dorothy. She had a look that was both innocent and sensual, which made her stand out from the typical playmate. In 1979, Dorothy was invited to Los Angeles for a test shoot. This was a life-changing moment for her. The opportunity to work with Playboy was not only financially lucrative, but it also opened doors to acting, modeling, and fame in Hollywood. 2. Dorothy becomes a Playmate. Playmate of the Month. In August 1979, Dorothy was named Playboy's Playmate of the Month. Her photos were a hit, and she quickly became one of the magazine's most popular playmates. Fans were drawn to her sweet demeanor and girl-next-door beauty, which stood in stark contrast to the more bombshell-like playmates that had come before her. Playmate of the Year. Dorothy's rise in Playboy continued, and in 1980, she was named Playmate of the Year, a prestigious title that came with a cash prize, a car, and even more exposure in the entertainment industry. As Playmate of the Year, Dorothy was featured in numerous Playboy events, appearances, and photo shoots, further elevating her profile. 3. The glamour and the dark side of Playboy. The Playboy Mansion. Dorothy's life became intertwined with the Playboy lifestyle. She was frequently invited to parties at the Playboy Mansion, where she mingled with celebrities, models, and Hollywood's elite. While the lifestyle seemed glamorous from the outside, it also had a darker side. The Playboy Mansion was known for its debauchery, drug use, and the often exploitative relationships between Hefner's inner circle and the young women seeking fame. Hefner's views on Dorothy. Hugh Hefner was particularly fond of Dorothy. He saw her as one of the most beautiful and promising playmates the magazine had ever featured. He also recognized her potential to move beyond Playboy and into Hollywood. Hefner's affection for Dorothy was well known, and he often spoke of her with admiration. However, this admiration also made Snider even more insecure about his own place in Dorothy's life. Dorothy's transition into Hollywood. 1. Early acting roles. Small roles in television. Following her success as a playmate, Dorothy began to pursue acting. She landed small roles in popular television shows such as Fantasy Island and Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. While her roles were minor, they helped build her acting resume and gave her valuable experience on set. Film appearances. Dorothy also appeared in the movie Skatown, USA, which, although not a major hit, further cemented her status as a rising star in Hollywood. Her beauty and charisma were undeniable, and she was being noticed by influential figures in the film industry. 2. Meeting Peter Bogdanovich. A fateful meeting. During this time, Dorothy met Peter Bogdanovich, a prominent and respected film director known for works like The Last Picture Show and Paper Moon. Bogdanovich was immediately captivated by Dorothy, not only for her beauty, but for her genuine sweetness and potential as an actress. The two began a relationship that would later cause further friction with Snider. Bogdanovich's influence on Dorothy. Bogdanovich became both a mentor and a lover to Dorothy. He saw in her the potential to be much more than just a Playboy model. He believed she could become a legitimate actress and wanted to help guide her career in a direction that would move away from the Playboy image. Their relationship deepened as Bogdanovich promised Dorothy a future filled with real opportunities in the film industry. The increasingly dangerous obsession of Paul Snider. 1. Snider's growing jealousy. The strained relationship. As Dorothy became more successful, her relationship with Snider began to deteriorate. While Snider had once been her biggest supporter, his feelings of inadequacy and jealousy grew more pronounced. He felt he was losing control of Dorothy, both personally and professionally. Snider's obsessive behavior. Snider's jealousy reached obsessive levels as he began to track Dorothy's movements, question her about her time with Bogdanovich, and accuse her of leaving him behind now that she was famous. His controlling nature, which had always been present, became even more oppressive. Dorothy began to feel trapped and increasingly fearful of what Snider might do. 2. Stalking and manipulation. Snider's attempts to control. Despite Dorothy's attempts to distance herself from Snider, he continued to manipulate and control her in any way he could. He would show up unannounced at her photo shoots, call her incessantly, and demand to know where she was at all times. His behavior became more erratic as he realized that Dorothy was slipping away from him. Financial control. Snider also attempted to maintain financial control over Dorothy. He had been instrumental in launching her career, and he believed that he deserved a portion of her earnings. He pressured Dorothy to give him money, threatening her emotionally if she didn't comply. Snider's belief that he was entitled to Dorothy's success further fueled his anger and obsession. The lead-up to the murder. 1. Dorothy's efforts to break free. Trying to end the relationship. By mid-1980, Dorothy had made the decision to leave Snider for good. She had fallen in love with Peter Bogdanovich and wanted to start a new chapter of her life, free from Snider's influence. However, breaking free from him was no easy task. Snider refused to let her go, and Dorothy feared for her safety if she left him too abruptly. Legal actions and moving on, Dorothy began taking steps to legally separate herself from Snider, including filing for divorce. She also started looking for new places to live, away from the home she had shared with Snider. Unfortunately, she remained in contact with him, as she still felt a sense of obligation toward the man who had played such a pivotal role in launching her career. This sense of obligation would ultimately lead her into the most dangerous situation of her life. 2. Snider's final descent into madness. Snider's financial and emotional ruin. As Dorothy distanced herself from him, Snider's life began to unravel. He was in deep financial trouble, having spent most of his money on trying to promote Dorothy's career. Without her by his side, he had no real prospects for success. His desperation grew as he realized that Dorothy was slipping away and his once grandiose dreams of fame and fortune were crumbling. Buying the shotgun. In the weeks leading up to the murder, Snider became increasingly unhinged. He began making threats against Dorothy, both to her and to friends and acquaintances. His jealousy and rage reached a boiling point when he purchased a 12-gauge shotgun, signaling his intention to take matters into his own hands. Though Dorothy was unaware of the true danger she was in, those close to her began to fear for her life. August 14, 1980. The murder. 1. The fateful meeting. Dorothy's fatal decision. On August 14, 1980, Dorothy agreed to meet with Paul Snider at the house they had once shared in Los Angeles. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss the final details of their separation. Dorothy, who was now in love with Peter Bogdanovich and ready to move on with her life, likely thought this would be the last time she would have to deal with Snider. What Dorothy didn't know. Unbeknownst to Dorothy, Snider had already planned to murder her. He was consumed with jealousy, rage, and the belief that if he couldn't have her, no one else could. Snider's desperation and fragile ego had reached a point where he was willing to take both her life and his own. 2. The murder-suicide. The brutal killing. When Dorothy arrived at the house, Snider lured her into the bedroom under the pretense of discussing their separation. Once inside, Snider attacked her, ultimately shooting her in the face with the shotgun he had purchased just days earlier. The murder was brutal, and Dorothy died almost instantly. Snider's suicide. After killing Dorothy, Snider turned the shotgun on himself, committing suicide in the same room where Dorothy lay. The murder-suicide was not discovered until hours later when friends of the couple, worried after not hearing from Dorothy, entered the home and found the gruesome scene. 3. The discovery of the bodies. Police investigation. The scene that awaited police officers was nothing short of horrific. Dorothy's body was found naked on the floor of the bedroom, while Snider's body lay nearby with the shotgun still in his hand. The murder-suicide shocked even the most seasoned investigators, who struggled to understand the depth of Snider's rage and jealousy. Media coverage. News of Dorothy's murder spread quickly, and the media descended on the story. The combination of a beautiful young playmate and a violent, tragic death made for a sensational story that captivated the public's attention. For weeks, newspapers and television programs were filled with details of Dorothy's life, career, and untimely death. The aftermath and the legacy of Dorothy Stratten. 1. Hollywood's reaction. Hugh Hefner's statement. Hugh Hefner was devastated by Dorothy's death. He had seen her as one of Playboy's brightest stars and had envisioned a long and successful career for her. Hefner publicly mourned her loss, speaking out about the dangers of toxic relationships and the tragedy of losing such a promising young woman to violence. Peter Bogdanovich's grief. Peter Bogdanovich was perhaps the most deeply affected by Dorothy's death. He had fallen in love with her and had planned to marry her. In the years following her murder, Bogdanovich struggled to cope with his grief. He withdrew from Hollywood for a time and later wrote a book titled The Killing of the Unicorn, in which he explored his relationship with Dorothy and the circumstances that led to her death. 2. The cultural impact. The tragic symbol of lost potential. Dorothy Stratten became a symbol of lost potential and the dangers that lurk behind the glamorous facade of Hollywood. Her story highlighted the darker side of fame, where beauty and talent can sometimes lead to dangerous and deadly situations. Dorothy's murder became a cautionary tale for young women entering the entertainment industry. Film adaptations. Dorothy's life and death were later portrayed in several films, most notably the 1983 movie Star 80, directed by Bob Fosse. The film focused on the relationship between Dorothy and Snider, exploring the toxic dynamic that led to her murder. While Star 80 received critical acclaim for its portrayal of the tragedy, it also reignited public interest in Dorothy's life and death. 3. The enduring legacy of Dorothy Stratten. Remembering Dorothy. Decades after her death, Dorothy Stratten's legacy endures. She is remembered as a talented, beautiful, and kind-hearted young woman who was taken too soon. Her story continues to resonate with those who are drawn to tales of Hollywood's darker side, and she remains a cautionary figure for those who seek fame in the entertainment industry. A lesson in toxic relationships. Beyond the glitz and glamour, Dorothy's story serves as a powerful reminder of the dangers of toxic relationships, obsession, and control. Her death is a testament to the importance of recognizing and addressing the warning signs of abuse before it's too late. Conclusion. The life and tragedy of Dorothy Stratten. Dorothy Stratten's story is one of beauty, fame, and unimaginable tragedy. She was a rising star who had the potential to become a Hollywood icon, but her life was cut short by a man who was consumed with jealousy and rage. Her murder shocked the world and left a lasting impact on those who knew and loved her. As we remember Dorothy, we must also remember the lessons her life and death have taught us about the dangers of obsession and control. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Peaceful Stories. If you enjoyed this deep dive into today's story, please remember to like the video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and share it with others who may find it interesting. Don't forget to subscribe to Peaceful Stories and hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. We post regularly, bringing you in-depth stories on true crime, history, and more. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful content. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, stay safe and take care.